my approach to talking about that stuff has more to do with I have known people who have committed suicide, and it's never the better option, right? It's never the solution. I want it to seem to people that it's never should be the solution.
You're listening to the Building Better Futures podcast, where innovation meets inspiration. In each episode, host Eric Hurani journeys alongside notable thought leaders who are shaping the future, cultivating exceptional work cultures, and nurturing the next generation of trailblazers. We aim to spark inspiration by engaging in dialogue with leaders from groundbreaking companies, innovative projects, and exceptional teams. Our goal is to empower individuals to positively impact those around them and leave a lasting legacy of positive change in our communities and society at large. Let's dive in together and explore what it takes to build better futures, one conversation at a time.
Today, I'm joined by Deputy Chief Michele Fitzsimmons of the New York City Fire Department. I'm so excited for this conversation. And Michele, normally I would let you speak here, but I'm going to say something real quick, which was I came out to do the Firefighter for a Day event a few weeks ago. It might even be months ago now. I don't know. Time flies.
Yeah, right? It flies right by.
But that was just such an incredible experience. And, I just want to thank you again for leading that effort. And I know all of us in that room, and I don't know how many of us there were, maybe like 30 or 40 of us, but we had a great time. We learned a lot. But we came out with immense respect for what you and your fellow firefighters and colleagues do. And just, so thank you. Thank you for everything you guys all do every day, all day. And so with that, well, let's kick it off. I always like to start the show off with good news and gratitude. Is there any personal or professional good news you want to share?
Personal, I will share. My daughter is going to be getting married on January 24th to a wonderful man. We're very excited to have him joining our family. And, it's exciting. Our whole family's excited about it.
That is awesome. And so I'm sure the days leading up to that are going to be
might be a little,
stressful
it's a small wedding, fortunately. It's not
okay.
like one of these huge, it's not a cast of thousands. It's a cast of tens. So it's a small wedding, kind of right in par with what our daughter is kind of like. She likes to keep things, smaller for her, little less big. So it's good.
That's nice. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I ebb and flow, I'm at heart like a very, I have a small group of friends that I've known since I was 5 years old,
Right.
and I love my family. Like every minute I get, I try to spend with my family. But I think on the flip side of that, the person Eric people, like a lot of people know, is like the me that goes to every single event in the industry. I'm like out like 3 or 4 days a week, and I do a lot of stuff like this, which probably gets me some outward facing mobility. So I think it's great. If she likes something small and she gets to do that, that's fantastic.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
I hope you guys have a great time, the whole family.
Thank you.
My gratitude, I think just because it makes sense, but probably to all first responders, kind of there when we need them. And it's probably an afterthought for a lot of people, right? Until you need them, you don't really think about it. For most, I don't want to, not categorize everybody. But so again, just like a gratitude to all first responders and everything they do. So with that being said, you're not one of our typical guests. We don't normally have, people from the fire department on. So I want you to take like a couple of minutes and tell us about your background and how you got into this, and what's your current role and what does that mean?
Okay. I joined the FDNY in May of 2001. I do have a family history of firefighting. My grandfather and my great-grandfather were both firefighters in the New York City Fire Department. So I had a whole nother career before. I'd kind of followed, my father wasn't able to be a firefighter. So he went into social services. I followed his path for a while, got kind of burnt out, and was looking for another career, and kind of went back to this little fantasy I had when I was, preteen, kind of like when I was about 12 years old. Like I was like, oh, I could be a firefighter like my grandfather, kind of thing. And women had just gotten in the department. My grandfather, having at that time been very old school, were like, women shouldn't be firefighters. And I was kind of like, okay. But, as I was older, had worked for a while, I was like, I need something different than what I'm doing. I had that Sunday afternoon dread of I got to go to work tomorrow. I got a big pile of stuff on my desk. And I was so burnt out that it was becoming, it was crushing me. So I happened to run into one of the original women in the New York City Fire Department, Brenda Berkman, at a fundraiser. And she happened to mention, like, I was talking, oh, you're a firefighter. I was like, that's exciting. That was something I wanted to do when I was a kid. She was like, there was a test coming up. And I kind of pursued that. And fortunately, I was able to get into the department. I was blessed. I found a a career that doesn't feel like it, doesn't feel like work. I love what I do. I love going to work. Um, and it's I was I was blessed is what I can say. Unfortunately, I came on in May of 2001, as I said, just shortly after I'd gotten out of the fire academy and out into the field was September 11th. Had a huge impact on my career. Um, really made me kind of double down on the opportunity that I had by being in the department. Um, and decided I was going to make the most of this career. And I have steadily taken promotions. We're a civil service department, so everything is by exam. I took multiple exams. I took a lieutenant's exam, a captain's exam, a battalion chief exam, and then a deputy chief's exam
Wow.
to move up through the ranks, which all required um, very long hours of study. I think when I studied for lieutenant, I studied for 2 years. When I studied for captain, it was a year and a half. When I studied for battalion chief, it was a year. And deputy chief was probably about 9 months. Um, so it's been like something I really had to be committed to. I'm the first woman to reach the rank of deputy chief in the department on the fire operations. And it's been an amazing career. I loved it so much. I talked my sister into becoming a firefighter. She's been on the department now for 19 years. And so that's been kind of my path to where I am now. Right now as a deputy chief, I work out currently like today, I'm here at the academy. I have a role at the fire academy that I've taken on as a way to kind of get back to the department. But I also work out in the field. I work in the North Bronx right now. I'm covering a spot up there, which has me responding to major emergencies is what I do as a deputy chief. I don't go out for investigations. I don't go out for, EMS runs or car accidents or anything like that. The only things that I'm going to be turning out and going out the door for are um, fires, major collapses, major gas leaks, major incidents that happen. And I show up as an incident commander for those types of operations. Also, when I'm out in the field, I'm visiting firehouses just to check in with the guys, see how the and sometimes get involved with doing training, more witnessing than actually running the training, kind of throwing my 2 cents in here and there. Um, Supervising companies when they're out on building inspection, just kind of checking in on them, see how it's going, kind of reinforce the importance of that part of our job. Um, and, being available to respond to any sort of emergency that happens.
It's amazing background. Thanks for sharing. And I guess one thing I didn't know before was that you had a career before you joined the FDNY. So that was interesting.
I did. I worked with people with HIV and AIDS for, geez, for 10 years
Wow.
before I joined the fire department.
So your whole life has been about serving others. That's a pretty impressive. Not too many people can say that, I would say.
It's something I think that was really influenced by my parents. My mother was a nurse and eventually became a midwife, and my father worked for the Human Resources Administration here in the city. So, like my family, and as with then my grandfather having been a firefighter and my great grandfather. So it's really something from my family has had a heavy influence on that.
I found that part interesting as well. And that I had read that you had a family lineage in the fire department. I always think that's cool. My family is also like in this industry going back to like my great grandfather, back in India, not here, but still. And I know you touched on 9/11. I just always like to take a moment if it comes up in conversation to just remember the day, never forget. You know, I'm a New Yorker through and through. I'm an American through and through, and like that is, you know, probably the most difficult day of my lifetime, probably most people's lifetimes.
I think most people who were alive at that point, who were old enough to understand the magnitude of what was happening, the New York City Fire Department, we lost 343 firefighters that day. Since then, we've lost more than that through cancer, and other illnesses. So it's still something that has a direct impact on the department today.
For sure. And so just taking a moment for remembrance, I think, is always important. And I know through our philanthropic arm, we donate to some 9/11 causes and support. So
And we appreciate it because
wherever we can help, we want to help. Um, but something you said there that really struck me, and I think was I want to hone in on, was obviously you progressed in your career to this like leadership role, right? And I remember from the training, one of the things that was the most impactful to me was we were doing the subway car rescue, right? So and in that chaos, like all of us, right? Like, and most of us there were either business owners or C-level personnel. We almost like all of our leadership skills were almost gone because we had people yelling at us about their kids were in the subway car and like, what are you doing out here? Get in there, and how do you plan around that? And so I want to ask you about like how did your experience on the front lines, right? Maybe earlier in your career, like shape your approach to leadership today and like, just talk to me about that because I feel like that sometimes, right? I think a lot of like leaders feel like that sometimes that we have the experience from doing what needs to be done, and it's not always easy to get that across because now we're in this leadership role and not in that frontline role.
Right. I think one of the things I think our department has gotten very good at is having our standard operating procedures, right? Our SOP is kind of across the board. Like we've had quite a few multiple alarms lately, like large scale fires. And when that happens, they start like moving people around a lot. So you end up working with people from like, you may be in the Bronx and you may have companies from Queens or Brooklyn or Manhattan coming into that same fire. And the fact that we all kind of work along that same line of like, we all kind of have the same procedures. We understand we're all speaking the same language. Yep. Right. We don't have someone from Manhattan coming in and speaking French. It's like we understand the same language. We understand our responsibilities. And as a firefighter, I did not necessarily understand the scope of how important that is. Right. And as moving through the rank, it's kind of more and more helped me to understand the importance of training. Right. We don't rise to the occasion. Right. We don't show up at a fire and rise to the occasion. We fall back to our training, right? Our training and how we've prepared for this is what we fall back on. So it just has reinforced for me the importance of having our members train for those emergencies and being prepared, having the foresight of, we are ready for things throughout the city that are high risk, low incidence, right? And even though we don't go to them a lot, we have to train for it. We may not have a large scale derailment of a subway, but we have to be ready for it. So it's really, as I've moved up through the ranks, I've appreciated more and more the level of training that I've gotten and looked at more and more how important it is to talk to the members about being prepared for things.
Oh no, I love that question, and I was like kind of hanging on every word because it's so funny. This snippet, and Stephanie, who's like it's not visible on the screen, but obviously she works on the podcast with me. Her major priority for this quarter is actually to standardize all of our SOPs, and we're going to document them. And for the very reason you mentioned, it becomes really hard to scale in crisis, right? If everyone doesn't know what they should be doing or how they should be operating, or where the tools and obviously it's at a way different scale and level for you and your team.
And one thing I will bring up about that would be, I also have to have faith in my team, right? One of the bigger adjustments for me was when I went from a company officer, so that would be a lieutenant or a captain, who is with one company and going into a fire or going to an emergency. Like, they're going in, and as an officer, I was directly involved with training those people. They were my people, not always, but I understood that they all kind of knew what their role was. So I was inside. It took me a while as a battalion chief, and even more so as a deputy chief, to kind of be able to step back and trust that I can kind of delegate a responsibility to someone. It's like, I need you to take your company. I need you to stretch a hose line and get to the roof. I can't micromanage what they're doing. I have to be able to just go like, and it's done. Like, understand that that's being taken care of. If I waste my brain power thinking, how are they going to do it, or giving them instruction, you know, it could be a lot of time wasted, right? And a lot of my brain energy being used for when I should be thinking 20 minutes ahead or 30 minutes ahead into the fire. I shouldn't be thinking about what's happening right now. By being able to delegate those things and understand that people can do their job and trust that that is happening has really been, it's difficult. It took me a while right away. Like, I used to spend a lot of brain power standing in front of a building, thinking about what people were doing instead of just being like, it's done, it's off my plate, move on to the next.
Trust the team. I and it's amazing the parallels here. Like your career experience and for like what I'm in the middle, like, I'm kind of in the middle of that right now. I really trust my team and they're working on, my business coach. I have a business coach who I work with very closely. And he told me the other day something. He's like, you want to stack the team with one email people. And I'm like, well, what's that? It's like, it's a person you send one email to. They know what you want. They know how to get it done. And the next time you hear from them is like, here you go. I took care of it for you, like, and have that level of trust. And it takes time to build it. But it's like, exactly what you described there. And I love that answer. Thanks for sharing that. Um, and so, like, you've been through 2 careers, right? And, you've obviously progressed, in probably both of them. But when you first started, and a lot of our listeners on the show are normally, like, early career professionals, maybe even students, right? They're looking ahead to what the rest of their career is going to look like. Um, what does success look like to you now, compared to what it looked like early in the career? Like, what did you think your success was gonna be early in your career?
Early in my career, I wasn't sure. Um, I All I knew was I was listening to the people who were teaching me, right? Like, when I came through the academy, I didn't have any preconceived notion that I knew what I was doing. I knew I had no idea what I was doing. Um, and I tried to be like a sponge and try to absorb as much stuff as possible. I do regret that I didn't ask as many questions as I should have, right? There were times that I can remember that I didn't ask questions about, like, I'd feel like, "Oh, this is a dumb question," right? And I would think, "I should know this," but I didn't, right? I should have asked the questions. Um, as I've gotten further into my career, I have no problem admitting that I have no idea what someone's talking about sometimes, or just being like, "Didn't catch that. Can we try that again?" Um, so early on, I had this thought in my head that I needed to know these things. I should know this, and I didn't. So I didn't give myself all the time. I did learn it over time, but that grace of not knowing and asking the question. Um, so, like, then my goals were just being not thinking people were, not having people think I was stupid, or not having people think I was incompetent. Um, Now I look more of, what can I do to support the people around me and the people who work for me? And how can I help them be confident? And I always say, ask any question, really. You know, I and sometimes, and I'll tell people sometimes you don't even know what the question is that you need to ask. You know you don't quite get it, but you're not even sure how to formulate that into a question. I know I had a lot of those moments too, when people were like, they'd do something and they'd be done. I'd be like, okay. And they'd be like, any questions? I'd be like, so it's learning to, you know, request the help that you need and ask the questions.
I don't know if you could see, I was like holding back my just laughter, and it's gonna feel like I'm just picking on Stephanie this episode, but I'm not. But we do a daily huddle every morning, right? And this is another thing I learned from my business coach, and our like philosophy, he and I, whenever we talk, is right, like no stupid questions. Like whatever you want to ask, please ask, because you don't know what that's going to spark in someone else, and you don't know what the response you're going to get back is, right? And it's just, it's like one of the other things I try to coach my team on is like take and make phone calls, right? You never know, like you have a question, like you think you know someone that knows the answer. Pick up the phone and ask them, because the worst thing is going to say, I don't really know, but they probably are going to try to direct you to someone else or try to help you. And you alluded to that, right? As we get like, you know, I don't want to say it in a bad way, but like later in our careers, we start to recognize, like, it feels like I actually know less, but I feel better about it because I can ask the question. I can be comfortable learning something new, and I can open myself up to that, like, humility, right? Just to say, hey, I didn't really get what you were trying to say there. Could you repeat that? And so it's just like, it's so funny because I literally, Steph and I had this conversation earlier today where she's like, I'm not sure if this is a bad idea. And I was like, hey, no bad ideas. Ask, talk, like let's figure out where we end up with. And we ended up in a great spot. I thought we came up with something like really amazing. So, and I shouldn't even say she came up with something amazing, but it was exactly what you just said. Like ask questions. And that's great advice for anyone.
And there's also a certain amount of being willing to make mistakes, right? If you are successful all the time, you're not taking big enough risks, right? Um, and like I think one of the things we did when you came out here for the training, like we did those after action reviews.
Yep.
Right? What was your plan? What happened? What would you do different if you had a chance to do it again? Right? I still use that. Like I still kind of like it's a lot less formal now because I've integrated it so much. But like I will sit and go through after an operation and be like, oh yeah, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I thought I would have reacted better than that. I didn't hear, like, and try and roll through and, do a critique in that way. And I think having a like a team doing that, like, if you have a company and you sit down and you do that, you're like, okay, what was your plan? What happened? And I'll start, right? I can start this conversation by kind of admitting that, nope, I would do this different if we did it again, right? It kind of creates that, um, the space where it's okay to kind of have not the most successful thing that happens, right? You have that little bit of, space for growth, and it can also create an atmosphere where when something is going wrong, someone doesn't feel like I gotta hide this mistake. I gotta come forward and be like, "Hey, I think this might be going haywire. Like, I think things are going wrong here." So
I tell, and I've probably mentioned this before, but I read the book, Principles by Ray Dalio. It's like, he's a hedge fund manager at, for Bridgewater. And, the book is like this thick. It's like, it's too thick, but I'm always like, if I can get one thing out of this, right, that was like a successful like call or book or podcast or whatever. And so my one thing that I got out of that was, early when he started the company, he had, at least the way he tells his story, there was this like big notebook in the middle of the trading, like their floor, right, their work floor, their bullpen. And if anyone ever made a mistake, you just went to the book, you wrote down the mistake, you didn't get in trouble. And then like once a week, everybody's mistakes were read out. And his reasoning was, if everyone's willing to admit they made the mistake, one, they'll never do it again because they've now learned, right? That was, they always say like, that's like the most expensive mistake, right? Like you'll never make that again. It's your life lesson. But because he could then share it with everyone else, it was that much less likely anyone else would make that mistake.
You add it to the other people's Rolodex, right? They
Right.
can put it in their Rolodex and they can reference that.
And so I think the ability, to create that culture where mistakes are okay. And, obviously in your world, it's high stakes environment. So like you got to measure what kind of mistake is okay.
You know, our
Mis-
department, when we do have fatalities of our members, do a in-depth investigation
Yep.
into it. And, there are sayings of our books are written in blood, right? There's procedures written after we have critical incidents like that. We go back, they go back, they look at our books, they examine, where did things go wrong? And sometimes like people are like, oh my gosh, this is the most ridiculous, procedure that we have. And it's like, well, we have that procedure for a reason.
Because, yeah,
Because everyone figured that was too redundant, and we discovered, no, it really wasn't that redundant.
that's hard. So, I mean, not to take away from that, but like, obviously in your career, both careers, it sounds like it would take an emotional toll, and I think a lot of people, no matter what career they have, there's some level of stress, right? That can happen. Probably not to your degree, but I'd be curious, like, have you found to like maybe manage that, like the emotional toll that the job kind of takes on you?
Well, I have a really great relationship with my partner. Like, I'm able to talk about stuff. I have friends on the job or off the job, retired. Like, more and more of my friends now are retired.
Yep.
So I have people I can call up and talk to. And, I will say early on in my career, I did not handle it well. I actually had a drinking problem at one point and stopped drinking because I had developed a drinking problem. Um, a lot of it was, you know, September 11th, I lost, we had been in the field for 9 weeks and 6 guys from my class died that day. The guy who stood right next to me for the 8 weeks I went through the academy died. Um, Mike Dioria, I'll say his name. Um, and there was our department became a big culture of mourning and grief. And the way I handled it was not great. I didn't deal with it, in the best way. And I recognized that I wasn't dealing with it well, and I changed it, right? I was fortunate. I didn't have an incident that was, you know, put me in jail or anything like that. My point when I made that decision was like, this is not good for me. And I started changing that when I've had moments of um where I felt the stress of things. You're dealing with people on their worst day of their life at times. I've gone to fires where people have been killed. I've gone to fires where their pets have been killed, or just the fact that they've lost all their possessions in one day. It's a stressful thing to address that and to see that. Um, and there have been times when I've been like, you know what? I need to call, we have a counseling unit for the department, and I've called the counseling unit and I've gotten counseling myself. And it's just being able to know that stiff upper lip or pull your boots up, you know, is not an answer, right? It's not necessarily an answer. Certain little things like, yeah, if I drop an ice cream cone, that might be enough. But when you're dealing with the things on a larger level, it's getting the help that's available, and our department makes things available, which is great.
And I mean, I really appreciate you sharing something so personal. And if nothing else, I hope that your story, if it resonates with someone, that they take the appropriate action to think about it as well. What I heard from earlier part of your response around like building the community that can be there for you, right? For you to lean on when you need it. And we talk a lot about that in terms of like mentorship almost. Like, find people around you that are there to support you. I think the most important thing you said there was like, don't bottle everything in. That's typical. I don't want to speak for everyone, but that may not be the best response, and sometimes you end up doing it because you're just not sure who to share with or what to share with them. Um, and and so that can't be easy. Um, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate you being so real about that. That's it's rare we get a story like that. So just thank you. Sorry, I'm a little off. I'm caught off guard. Um, but I appreciate it because that's what we want. We want to get to
And,
that like raw
I
emotion.
don't my approach to talking about that stuff has more to do with, um, I have known, um, people who have committed suicide, and it's never the better option, right? It's never the I want it to seem to people that it's never should be the solution. That, and the thing is, it's the little thing, it's not often it's not one thing. And it's not something that from the outside may look like that to someone, right? It may not look that way to people. So it's, those little things, if you just let them build up, all of a sudden, like people are like, but that wasn't worth it, right? So, or the heart attack you have because you've been carrying stuff around for so long and haven't been taking care of yourself, or the overeating, or whatever it is that you use as your vice. It's so important to have those people you can talk to and that support you can fall back on.
In the construction industry, that we have prevalent vice usage and an unfortunately high suicide rate. And I I just want to echo everything you said there. To find the community or find the help or reach out and talk to someone. And it always reminds me of like in uniform. I know you're a firefighter. And I can suppose certain things that you've been through, right? Like, and I don't mean just you, like anyone, right? In uniform, you can tell kind of who they are and maybe have an expectation there of something they've experienced. But if it's a Saturday afternoon and you're at the grocery store, I don't know that. And what I'm getting at is like, just be kind to everyone because I don't know what you went through in the last 24 hours, right? For all I know, you fought a huge fire last night and, hopefully no one died, but you pulled two bodies out and they're in the hospital right now and you don't know what's going to come of them, right? And so just be kind, be kind to each other, be kind to everyone you come across with because you don't know the weight they're carrying. Um, and I touched on mentors there a little bit, and I always like to ask this question, but in your career, have there been like mentors or leaders you've leaned on or learned from, and anything you could share about that relationship or what they taught you?
Well, I'll say probably one of my biggest mentors slash one of my closest friends was Lieutenant Anna Skimmerhorn Collins, who's actually retired now. But she's still someone I fall back on, right? We had breakfast the other day. Um, but she was ahead of me into the career. She would have had, she's been retired for a few years now. And she'd probably be approaching 30 years at this point. So she had, about 4 or 5 years more than I did. And she was always someone who I would like bounce things off of. She's someone I would call and be like, what do you think? Or she would call me and be like, you know, had this thing that happened and we kind of bounce things off. So I had that kind of relationship, that supportive relationship that we went back and forth. Um, and then I also had those people who were like officers that I looked up to, right? Who I wanted to emulate, right? It was kind of like, you had those people who you learn from, the people who you want to be like, and those people who you work for that you don't want to be like.
Yeah.
Learn the lessons both ways. So I had like one of my lieutenants early on was this Lieutenant Rick Bruno. He was calm, cool, collected, had a lot of time on the job, and everything was just never heard him raise his voice. Like I heard him raise his voice once, and that was when he was pissed at someone. But at a fire, you'd never hear him, like, he never was raising his voice, it was never yelling, it was all calm and cool, and I was like, "That is what I choose to." I mean, because it carries over, right? When you can stay calm in the storm, it keeps everyone else calm. And then I've had other people I've been really fortunate on this job that I've been offered opportunities to go through trainings and, like, participate in things that just, I happen to have gotten involved with, like, the event we did with YPO. I was involved with that early on, and that was like I knew Jack Hodgins. I'd done some like I worked with him, and he ended up being the chief of department at one point, you know. But he was involved in the early iterations of what YPO went through. And then you know, the um whatever, if you want to call it, the FDNY intensive or corporate challenge, how, you know, and um, that opened up a whole, like, path for me of, like, just an understanding of the job, a connection with the job that was very different. I had the opportunity. Jack eventually came back to me and asked me to come and work at headquarters, and I was kinda like, "I really don't wanna work at headquarters, I'd really prefer to stay out in the field." And he was like I was like, "What are you looking for?" He's like, "A year?" I was like, "Ugh." He's like, "6 months." I was like, "Okay." And that, like, it was an opportunity to go to headquarters and work at headquarters and get a very different perspective on our job. And I was grateful for that, right? That I was offered that opportunity. And I've gone through so many different trainings that were offered, and at times it was people approach me, it's like, "Hey, you interested in this?" I was like, "Yes, I was." And, you know, and that was one of my big things was I learned to say yes, right? Someone comes at you with an opportunity, even if it's something that doesn't seem that desirable, just saying yes to things can open up so many doors. So I was like, I've had a lot of like, I've said yes to a lot of things that opened a lot of doors for me.
It's a great mindset. It's you know, as I do more and more of these, like with successful people like yourself, I always learn a lot. But that saying yes theme, it it's like it comes back more often than I realize. And so I hope the listeners take that away, right? Say yes to things, challenge yourself. You know, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to take on something you don't fully understand. Now obviously within reason, right?
Right, exactly. Within reason. Like
Yeah, yeah.
there were a couple things that I actually said no to, you know, but it was like that had more to do with I said no more a matter of sticking with my principles, like, of like, "How do you want me to do that?" Nah, like, if I'm doing that, that's not within my integrity of how I wanna do things,
How you wanna do
you
things.
know, like, that's like, how do I wanna move through things? Yeah.
So it's, you know, what do you wanna leave as your legacy to the department?
I think the thing most that I wanna leave to the department would be how the people who worked for and with me influenced the department, right? I'm currently, like, right, I'm covering up in the North Bronx, and I've got, like, quite a few of my firefighters are up there now as lieutenants.
Oh, wow.
Where I was a captain down in Chelsea at Ladder 12 and Engine 3. I was the captain of Engine 3 for a year, and then I moved to Ladder 12, and a lot of the guys who worked with me down there are now they were firefighters there, and now they're lieutenants up in the Bronx, and, like, that, like, looking around and being like, "Oh, those are some of my firefighters," right? And then some of my firefighters from, um Engine 3 and Letter 12 went into Special Operations Command, right? And, like, some of that had to do with me being, like approaching them and being like, "What is it you wanna do in this department? Like, where is it you wanna be 5 years from now?" You know? And a couple of them were like, "Well, you know, I'd like to go to squad." And I was like, "Alright." I was like, "You're gonna go to squad, you gotta make sure you got these things in order, and if you do that, I'll make a phone call for you, right? I'll talk to the captain and look at trying to, like, have them look at you. Like, I can't get you in, like, you know, it's not a definite yes, but I'll make a phone call and vouch for you. So if, like, the influence I have is other people making their way in the department, that would be great. Like, if they can have a positive influence on the job. So,
I love that as a legacy, and it was kind of, we did our quarterly, like, corporate meeting yesterday, and we have an implementer facilitator who, asked us, like, and I don't remember the exact question because it was kind of off the cuff. I guess it was technically our icebreaker, and
right.
it was like, uh, you know, like, why is it important to you to be here and building something, you know? And my answer, and, like, not the same as yours, but it was very much around, like, this company is the way that I know how to influence and like improve other people's lives. And like, if I can do that, that would, that's like kind of the legacy I want to, like, that's what I want to be remembered for if I can. Like, they inspired me or they helped me or they, were able to get me to where I want to be in my career. And it sounds like you've done that for a lot of people. So I just like, I hope to get there, but it's very cool that you've done that for so many people.
And I still to this day have people I run into and I'll be like, "Oh, how much time do you have on the job?" And they'll like tell me and I'll be like, "Did I teach you in propy school?" Like, "Yep." Yeah, because I had been an instructor at our probationary firefighter school, and that also had a pivotal influence on my career in terms of like, you know, giving back to the job and, seeing that like watching people go from being civilians to being firefighters, not just from having experience, but like watching that happen,
Yeah.
it's a great it's great to be able to have that opportunity.
That sounds amazing. All right, more generally, and this will be our last like podcast question before the lightning round.
Okay.
I want to ask like, is there like a quote or a mantra or some advice that you have for the next generation of leaders? And they don't have to be firefighters, but in general, like, is there something you'd want to give to the next generation? A quote, a mantra, or just some advice?
I think that's saying yes to opportunities. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yep.
Like really, say yes to the opportunity and really like for me, like for my career, like the thing that's helped me is just being really committed to it. Like I've really, as much as I've put into it, I've gotten a lot more back,
Yep.
in terms of, this job is just, it's given me so much. I've had the opportunity to work with great people. I've had the opportunity to help people in the city of New York. It's just, so that like saying yes and kind of putting the energy into it so that and not with the expectation that it comes back, but I can guarantee if you put the energy in, it's going to come back to you.
It comes back. I hear that a lot. It's like it's a big YPO thing. Everyone says like, the more you put in, the more you're gonna get back, and just like keep doing it. All right, very cool. Appreciate all of that wisdom. What a great story. Thank you again for your service. And I'm not gonna let you go just yet because I do want to
Okay.
do our quick lightning round.
Okay.
So these are fast fire questions. They're more fun than anything else.
Okay.
But so my first lightning round question is, what is your favorite meal? And only if you choose to do this, but like, is there a specific restaurant at which you think that meal is the best?
Oh, oh, I'm thinking, what's my favorite meal? Like, oh, what do I like to cook?
Well, no, but you could do that. You could say at home. That's a perfect.
Oh
So you
yeah.
do like to cook.
I really like to make gumbo and I like my gumbo a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. I do. I don't get to make it because my wife can't eat green peppers, but I don't make it that often. I did make it not too long ago. But that is one of my favorite things. Um, although, and then my favorite restaurant, I'm like, Masala Box is the Indian restaurant in Bayside that I like to go to.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Wasn't expecting Indian food. Look at that. We should
I
go
love Indian.
sometime.
Oh, that's me and my wife. That's our special place. When we go out for food, that's our go-to.
Masala box. I wrote it down. I might check that. I love Indian food. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's like the son works out front. His mom is in the kitchen. It's great.
all right. So you obviously probably work very long shifts at time. Are you a coffee, a tea, an energy drink? Like what's your go-to that keeps you going during those shifts?
In the morning, I usually, if I'm at home, usually having one of those mushroom coffee things.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. I've gone through Rise and Daily Dose, and Joey is the newest one. And it's I usually don't have just one or the other. I usually combine them, and that's kind of my go-to at home because I don't get too over caffeinated, which I tend to do when I come to work and I
Yeah.
drink coffee because I love having a full cup of coffee and I keep drinking it all day, so I get a little over caffeinated.
The mushroom, like not even just in coffee, but I know in coffee is a big one. It's becoming like a big thing. What are they saying are the health? Like there's some benefits to it, right?
Yeah, it's supposedly like clarity without the caffeine buzz. There's like all these like adaptogens and things that are supposed to make it feel better. I enjoy it. I have, I do find that I don't get overly, and it kind of has the longer, more even kind of lift as opposed to just caffeine that kind of gives you those spikes.
Very cool. And I try to keep this as broad as possible because I never know what anyone's interests are. But give me like a favorite book, movie, TV show, concert, like experience, whatever. Just give me a favorite.
A favorite. Oh gosh. I do love seeing live music.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you have like, is that like concerts or the Philharmonic or like what are you thinking?
Concerts, usually musical concerts, like Nathaniel Rateliff, if he's around and playing, I'm gonna see him. Usually Jack White, if he's around, I'm gonna see him. Like there's a couple people who like anytime they tour, I'm supposed to go see Rush on their 50-ish tour where they've got their replacement drummer for Neil Peart. There's gonna be a woman playing the drums for them. That's my next big concert going to is that gonna be that one.
Is that the Jones Beach?
No, the
Oh,
Rush
okay.
concert, I think it's gonna be Madison Square Garden.
Okay. I have one of our guys, huge music guy, one of our like safety guys, and he's definitely going to that concert. I don't know why I thought it was at Jones Beach. Maybe he just goes to a lot of concerts.
Their last time they played, I think, in New York when they did their
Oh, okay,
40th
okay.
tour was at Jones Beach. Yes.
And then last lightning round question. One skill you're actively working to improve.
One skill I'm actively working. Well, I took a pottery class.
Oh wow.
So I'm gonna learn how to do that, and I am taking a blacksmithing class.
Oh wow. What do you making in the blacksmithing class?
I have no idea. I'll find out when I get there.
Oh,
But
you haven't.
I'm
You're
looking
going.
at developing skills for retirement, so that when I retire, I have things I do. But in terms of something that I already do well is photography. Is I need to work on that a little more.
Wow, you're very talented. I have no musical or art skills. Blacksmithing sounds really cool though. I didn't even know that was like I guess I just didn't think about it as a thing to do,
It was
but
a holiday gift from my wife that she signed me up for a class. I was like, awesome. So in February, I'm going to that.
I know this is so last night my wife and I were talking and I don't remember why hobbies came up and I was just like, you know, I don't have any and I should probably have that. But I wonder, is your wife
Got to
getting you
develop a
that?
hobby. You need a hobby.
I need a hobby. I need a hobby. Maybe blacksmithing. I might try.
You can. Hey, they offer those classes all over the place.
Oh man. But Michelle, this was such an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And then thank you again, obviously, for all your support at the event that I went to and for everything you do outside of that. Do you have any like closing or parting words or anything you want to share with the audience?
I appreciate you inviting me today. Thank you so much. I do enjoy, doing stuff like this. I like the opportunity for people to understand what a great opportunity the FDNY is. I really think we've got an amazing organization here at the FDNY, and I like to, I've gotten so much out of it. I like people to understand of how great it is. But thank you for the opportunity today. I'm really grateful.
Fantastic. And going back to something we talked about, it sounds like you've gotten a lot out of it, but I think it's because you've clearly put a lot into it. So thank you for doing that. And I'm sure the city's a better place for it. But with that, that's all the time we have for today. We'll include links to any references or resources we mentioned in the show notes. And thanks again for listening, everybody, and keep an eye out for our next episode.
This episode is brought to you by Infinite Consulting Corp., your go-to firm for MBE certified project and construction management consulting. Discover how Infinite can help you build a better future at infiniteconsultingcorp.com.